All right, today we're looking at a visual deck called Mastering Metaphors. It's a guide to help learners sound more like native speakers by breaking down 9 idioms with logic and imagery.
Mm-hmm.
The deck is split into 3 themes: the heart, the senses, and the outcome. And we're just going to dive right into the critique and see if we can help move this from a vocab list to more of a real linguistic tool.
Let's get right into it.
Excellent. So, starting with that first section, the heart, which is all about relationships. While the visual equations in this section are pretty sound, logically, the definitions, they miss the crucial elements of maturity and permanence that really distinguish these idioms.
That is the core issue here. Yeah. If we look at the first slide, puppy love, you've got the dog icon plus a heart.
Right.
The definition is intense but short-lived romantic love, usually experienced by young people. And, visually that works. The logic is there.
It makes sense.
But just defining it as young misses the dismissive nuance that adults often use.
Exactly. A native speaker almost never uses puppy love as a sincere compliment.
Precisely. And I think there's a risk here. If you only focus on the age of the people involved, you're missing the judgment of the person saying it. When someone says, "Oh, it's just puppy love," they're implying it's not serious.
It's fleeting.
It's intense, yeah, sure, like a puppy is intense, but it lacks weight. It lacks history.
Okay, so let's get into strengthening it. We need to analyze the implications of the idiom, not just the literal pieces.
Right. For puppy love, the actionable suggestion is to talk about that short-lived and frivolous nuance directly. I tell the creator to lean into the puppy imagery itself. Why a puppy?
They're cute, excitable,
And
have very short attention spans.
it's not just young love, it's love that won't last. The definition needs to warn the learner, don't use this to describe your boss's marriage.
That's a great point. You'd be laughed out of the room if you toasted to their puppy love at a 25th wedding anniversary.
Or fired. Yeah. It implies the feelings are all on the surface. The material really needs to capture that infatuation versus commitment dynamic.
That brings us to the second idiom here, head over heels. The visual is good, a stick figure tumbling upside down.
Mm-hmm.
But the text is just to be completely and deeply in love.
That feels a little generic, doesn't it? I mean, you could say deeply in love about a couple that's been married for 50 years. You wouldn't say they're currently head over heels.
I see what you're getting at. The visual shows the tumble, but the text ignores the physics of it.
Exactly. The weakness is that deeply in love suggests stability. Head over heels suggests the opposite, instability. The suggestion is to lean into that upside-down tumble text right there on the slide. This idiom is not just about depth of love, it's about disorientation.
So concretely, how do they fix it?
They should update the definition to include that idea of losing control. Maybe use an example of someone making irrational decisions. You're head over heels when you can't think straight. It's a feeling of vertigo, not just affection.
Your world has been turned upside down?
Yes.
Your feet are where your head should be. The text needs to match the chaos of that tumbling icon.
I love that. The difference between a warm glow and a roller coaster. Okay, third one in this section, a match made in heaven. We have a puzzle piece and a cloud with a halo.
Right.
Definition, 2 people who are perfectly suited to each other. The example is about 2 people who both like hiking and cooking.
Which is cute, but maybe too simple? My concern is that just liking the same things is compatibility. That's not necessarily a match made in heaven.
You're arguing the idiom implies something much bigger than shared hobbies.
Correct. The scale is off. The weakness is in the example. I'd suggest they critique that puzzle piece visual a little. The puzzle piece says they fit, but the heaven part, the halo, is doing the real work. This idiom implies some kind of external validation.
So, an actionable improvement.
Explain that it implies fate. The universe designed it. It's not that they both like pasta. It's that their personalities balance each other so perfectly it feels like destiny put them together. The example sentence needs more weight.
Not just hiking?
No, something like, she calms him down when he's angry, and he motivates her when she's scared. That's a match made in heaven. It's about a complementary existence.
It elevates the connection, I get it. Okay, that clarifies the heart section. Let's move to the second theme, the senses.
This is an interesting one. using physical senses for mental states.
Right. So the auditory cues here are effective, but I think the section risks overlooking the motivation and the vagueness that are built into these phrases.
Yeah, you can see it in the visuals, a bell, changing musical notes. But let's look at ring a bell. The definition is to sound familiar, to cause someone to remember something vague.
Seems accurate on the surface.
It is, but is it complete? The weakness is that it doesn't capture the specific feeling of struggling to remember. If I know exactly who you are, I don't say your name rings a bell.
You just say, I know you.
Exactly. The idiom is actually defined by the absence of full knowledge. The suggestion is to shift the focus from the sound of the bell to the psychological state of the speaker. It's about that gap in your memory.
Okay, give us a concrete example of a rewrite.
Well, a bell in this context is faint. It's distant. It's not a fire alarm in your ear. The critique is to explain that you use this when you can't fully recall the memory. It's on the tip of your tongue. They should add a usage note. Use this when you have a feeling of recognition, but no details. The example on the slide is good, but the definition itself needs to state that partial memory is the key.
It's the linguistic equivalent of squinting.
Okay, let's look at change one's tune. We've got musical notes changing color, a face going from angry to happy.
And the definition is to change one's opinion or attitude, especially for advantage.
But they've kind of buried the most important part there.
They really have. Especially for advantage is in the fine print. The headline is just change opinion.
And the visual?
An angry face to a happy face. That just looks like a mood swing.
Like they just had some coffee.
Right. And change one's tune is rarely a compliment. It usually implies they were forced to or bribed. It suggests a lack of integrity.
So the suggestion is to bring that cynicism to the forefront.
Yes. Challenge that happy face visual. The real nuance here is hypocrisy. An actionable example would be to use a scenario with money or authority. The slide's example is actually perfect. He quickly changed his tune when I offered to pay him.
So just highlight that.
Highlight it and explain it. Explain that the subject didn't just get happier. They compromised their principles for cash. That's what changing your tune feels like. It's strategic, not emotional.
Got it. And for this section, finally, quiet as a mouse. The slide correctly identifies it as a simile.
Yeah, this one's a bit safer but still narrow. The weakness is that the hiding context limits its usage. We see a mute button and a mouse.
But you can be quiet as a mouse without hiding.
Exactly. The suggestion is just to move beyond the hiding children example. Talk about how quiet can also imply timidity. It can be a personality trait.
How would you expand it?
I'd suggest they add context about being unobtrusive. You can be quiet as a mouse in a meeting because you're too scared to speak up. It's not just about decibels, it's about presence. You're trying not to be noticed.
It captures a kind of shrinking violet quality. That makes sense. Okay, this brings us to the third section, the outcome.
I have some strong thoughts here. This is where the metaphors really depend on a process, not a static image.
Right. The material sets up these binary outcomes, good or bad. But the outcome section relies too heavily on that, and I think the feedback needs to highlight the process or timeline that's embedded in the idioms.
Let's start with recipe for disaster. The visual is great. A cooking pot, a warning sign. The definition is a situation that is very likely to end badly.
Which sounds so passive to me. Likely to end badly sounds like a roll of the dice.
Exactly. The weakness is that passivity. A recipe implies instructions. You follow steps. You gather ingredients.
So the suggestion is to reframe it around inevitability.
Yes. The critique should explain that a recipe implies a series of steps. You use this idiom when you can see the bad ingredients combining. The feedback should be to emphasize predictability. It's not bad luck, it's bad planning.
You cooked it yourself.
You cooked it yourself. It highlights the causality, not just the bad ending.
Puts the agency back where it belongs. Okay, next up is hard to swallow. We see a pill and a throat. The definition is difficult to believe or accept.
Again, the visual is doing more work than the text. Difficult to accept is abstract. Hard to swallow is visceral.
It's physical. It's a bodily rejection.
It is. The suggestion is to really dig into that pill imagery. It's not just bad news, it's news that is, emotionally indigestible. It causes a gag reflex.
So what's a concrete way to improve that definition?
Contrast it with something else, like contrast hard to swallow with just disappointing. Losing $5 is disappointing. Finding out your best friend stole $5 from you, that is hard to swallow.
It sticks in your throat.
It does. It requires effort to get it down. The user needs to emphasize that internal resistance. The quick check on the slide asks if it means delicious. That's way too easy. A better check would be asking if it applies to simple bad news or shocking betrayal.
It implies you have to force yourself to integrate this new reality. Got it. Lastly, everything's coming up roses. This one's interesting. The visual shows a dead bush, then a clock, then a flowering bush.
And the user has the visual element perfectly right with that clock, but the text just ignores it. The definition is simply everything is turning out very well. The note about after a period of waiting is buried.
So the timeline is key here.
Yes. The suggestion is to focus on that dead bush versus flowering bush visual. This idiom is specifically about a turnaround. You don't say this if things were always good.
It implies a change in fortune.
Correct. The actionable example. A sports team was losing, but now they're winning. That's when you use this. It's not just success. It's success in spite of previous failure. It's a comeback idiom.
That brings us to the final part of the deck, the structure and review. We have a cheat sheet and a quick check section.
And this is where the pedagogical value often just drops off in these kinds of things. You do all this work on nuance, and then the test is too simple.
The argument here is that these final materials are functional, but they encourage rote memorization, not active synthesis.
That's the trap. The weakness is in those quick checks. Like you said, for hard to swallow, the question is basically, does this mean delicious? That's patronizing. And the cheat sheet just puts the idioms back in their boxes.
So we need a challenge that tests true mastery.
The suggestion is to create a mix and match challenge. We need to force the learner to cross the stream, so to speak.
Can you give us an actionable example of that?
Absolutely. Instead of pick one idiom, ask them to combine a heart idiom with an outcome idiom. Give them a scenario like, describe a puppy love situation that turned into a recipe for disaster.
Oh, that's really good. It forces a narrative.
Exactly. It forces them to understand cause and effect. We had puppy love, so we didn't think about the future, and moving in together was a recipe for disaster. Now you're actually speaking the language, you're synthesizing.
Or maybe combining quiet as a mouse with change one's tune.
Yes. He was quiet as a mouth in the meeting, but once the boss left, he changed his tune and wouldn't stop complaining. That shows you understand the nuance of the mouse and the hypocrisy of the tune. That is mastery.
That is a fantastic way to elevate the material.
It turns it from a vocabulary list into a storytelling kit.
So, let's just recap where we've landed. The material, Mastering Metaphors, has great bones. The visuals are excellent. The logic of breaking the idioms down, dog plus heart, is very effective.
It is. The visual foundation is solid.
But to get to that next level, the definitions have to move beyond simple translation. In the heart section, we need to embrace the nuance of maturity, the lack of control.
Stop treating them as just love words and treat them as judgment words.
And in the senses section, focus on motive. Changing one's tune is about advantage. Ring a bell is about the frustration of a partial memory.
The psychological state, not just the sound.
In the outcomes section, it's all about process. A recipe means ingredients and inevitability. Hard to swallow means resistance.
And coming up roses implies a turnaround over time.
And finally, ditch the binary true-false quizzes. Challenge your learners to synthesize these idioms into complex narratives. That's how they'll truly master them.
And honestly, once they start mixing these, that's when the language really comes alive.
We would encourage the listener to revise those text descriptions to match the depth of the visuals you've already created. And once you've done that, please submit the updated version. We'd love to see how it evolves.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to reading the recipe for disaster that was a match made in heaven.
Until next time, keep refining your work. This has been The Critique.